It's almost!
He's done it again! Unbelievable!
Oh, straight into the roof of the net. Nice one. Straight down the middle. So a good performance from both teams.
Hello and good evening. It's time for Firstpost. I'm Rupha Ramani. Let's get started. Right on the show today, Jannik Sinner makes it to the semi-finals of the US Open, and in doing so is the only top 10 player in the Grand Slam still alive, even as the noise around him regarding the doping suspension that he escaped gets louder. Rafa and Roger weighing in on this as well, opening another fresh round of criticism. We get you more on this story. Speaking of criticism, can Pakistan ever be far behind when it comes to their men's cricket team in this regard? Pakistan cricket reaches another all-time low, first-time slumps to 8th in the men's test team rankings since 1965. Former cricketers cry hoarse. What's going wrong in Pakistan cricket? And now Argentina is walking on thin ice after FIFA threatens to take action if their fans do not behave when Argentina plays their World Cup qualifier tomorrow. What has brought the anger of the world upon the country, and how have the political bigwigs contributed to flaming the fire? But first, the headlines on Sports 360. Starting with news from the world of football, Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo miss the men's Ballon d'Or nomination list. This is the first time since 2003 that they have been absent. The 30-man list, of course, features names like Lamine Yamal, Nico Williams, Vinicius Jr., Harry Kane and Erling Haaland. Other notable nominees, of course, England's Jude Bellingham and France's Kylian Mbappe. Over in tennis at the US Open, in the women's draw, world number one Iga Świątek suffered a heartbreaking loss in the quarterfinals. The Pole lost to America's Jessica Pegula 2-6, 4-6 in straight sets. The match lasted close to 90 minutes. Over in cricket, Mongolia's men's cricket team recorded the joint lowest total in T20 internationals. Singapore bundled out Mongolia for just 10 runs in the T20 World Cup Asia qualifier. Harsha Bharadwaj tormented Mongolia with his personal best bowling figures of 6 for 3. At the top of this unwanted list, accompanying Mongolia, is Isle of Man, who recorded this feat against Spain last year. Uganda's Olympic athlete Rebecca Cheptegei died after allegedly being set on fire by her boyfriend. The 33-year-old marathon runner suffered severe burns in the attack and was getting treated in a hospital in Eldoret. The incident occurred in Kenya after Cheptegei returned from church. The attack followed a dispute between Cheptegei and her partner. And in the Paralympics, Harvinder Singh claimed India's first ever gold medal in archery. He secured a decisive win over Poland's Lukasz Zizek. The 33-year-old Indian archer won 6-0 in the men's individual recurve open final. India have 24 medals in the Paralympics so far. The US Open has celebrated their own home stars. 6 American semi-finalists across categories is phenomenal. And while the US command did create a lot of buzz, the noise around Jannik Sinner is loud. And not because of his tennis alone, the Italian star managed to evade a doping punishment right before the US Open started. This despite testing positive for a banned substance not once but twice. Sinner was let off, and that created a huge uproar in the tennis world. And with the 23-year-old just 2 wins away from his second Grand Slam title, both coming this year it would be, it is now getting to be a loud din. The world number one reached the semi-final earlier today, beating Daniil Medvedev in a 4-set showdown. Even with a minor hiccup in the second set, the Italian still managed to hold on to the match and beat the Russian 6-2, 1-6, 6-1, 6-4. With this win, he's the only top 10 player left in the Grand Slam, so all the spotlight is on Sinner. But that was the case even before the US Open Grand Slam began, because Sinner started the year on a high with a win at the Australian Open, world number one, of course, after that, and 4 ATP Tour titles in the season so far. So it was expected to be another dominant year for him. But as the year progressed, the Italian failed at Wimbledon, the French Open, and even had to withdraw from the Olympics. In the middle of the slump, of course, came the doping scandal. So everything is riding on the US Open for Sinner.
I will now put this challenging and deeply unfortunate period behind me. It's an amazing city, amazing place to play tennis. So I want to enjoy as much as I can and hopefully have a good tournament.
The tennis world, though, was heavily divided on the verdict. Nick Kyrgios and others continued to hit back at the decision as they questioned the preferential treatment that Sinner had received. The under fire world number one found some support in Rafael Nadal.
I don't believe in that Sinner wanted or meant to dope. Justice is justice, and we don't have to like it only when they decide what we want them to decide. If he hasn't been sanctioned, it's because the judge has clearly seen that he hasn't doped. I don't think they have judged him as innocent simply because he's the world number one.
Some respite for Italian there, but given the rage fans and many in the tennis world expressed over the Sinner verdict, Nadal defending him was met with severe resentment. So clearly, even as Sinner was quietly notching up the wins, the jibes and disgruntled comments were not stopping. A tournament that Sinner expected to be a redemption of sorts has slowly turned into a very frigid cold zone, with every prominent voice in the tennis world accusing ITIA of getting this wrong. Now, you can understand the anguish someone like Simona Halep expresses, because Halep herself had to stay away from tennis for almost a year. Had ITIA been strict with Sinner and not accepted his reasoning, the Italian would have been watching the US Open from his home on TV screens instead of playing in it. While leading tennis players and his biggest competitors, Novak Djokovic and Carlos Alcaraz, didn't pick sides, Roger Federer's statement created quite the flutter.
I understand the frustration about has he been treated the same as others. I think we all trust that Jannik didn't do anything. But the inconsistency potentially that he'd have to sit out while they were not 100% sure about what was going on, I think that's the question here that needs to be answered. It's not something we want to see in our sport. This type of news, regardless of whether he did something or not, it's just noise that we don't want.
Federer's statement highlights why there is such an outcry over this subject. The anguish isn't against Sinner in particular, but the system that allowed him to walk away while others before him had to face the brunt of it. Sinner is of course stuck in the middle of this. His biggest quest then is to silence it all, shut the noise by doing what he knows and does best, which is win. Play good, solid tennis and win. The US Open title will not make it all go away, unfortunately, but it will be the redemption Sinner is hoping to earn. Pakistan's cruel critiquing troll machinery is up and running again. It comes as no surprise this time though. Usually they would be harsh and ruthless to a point of uncaring, spewing venom at the slightest misstep. Many times you feel the trolls have probably overstepped a tad bit. But this time, Pakistan cricket team gave them plenty to get at them for. Pakistan lost their second test to Bangladesh yesterday, crumbling to a whitewash for the very first time to an opponent, and to this particular opponent, and that too at home, in front of their fans. The situation couldn't be worse for just about everyone in Pakistan, outside the country. Everyone invested in the team and the sport to sharpen their knives. Because it was not just the loss that hurt. Pakistan, for the first time since 1965, have slumped to their worst ranking in Test cricket, that of 8th. This rock bottom in the third format as well, and the first in line to beat the drums and call for Operation Face Uplift have been the former cricketer's predictable name in that one, Ahmed Shehzad.
Pakistan kept complaining about the pitch, but Bangladesh batters made the same surface look like a flat track. They played great cricket and dominated Pakistan throughout the series. Their bowling was brilliant and their batters showed amazing grit. They have taught Pakistan how Test cricket should be played. They lovingly told you I love you and whitewashed you in the series.
I can only picture what Shehzad just said. Bangladeshi cricketers crooning I love you in their native tongue to Pakistan as they went ahead and creamed them. And of course, the meme makers and fans have had quite the field day and, in fact, the week. A little funny that, but jokes aside, this has been a rather disheartening progression for the men in green, who have been one of the best cricketing sides in the world for decades, producing some of the best talents for the world to see and be inspired by. The reason why this is alarming is because of what I'll show you. Last year, Pakistan was the #1 ODI team in the world. They had a disastrous ODI World Cup late last year and are currently #4 in the world. That's not too bad, but crossing over to the other formats, over in T20, last year Pakistan were #3. They had a terrible T20 World Cup earlier this year, failing to make it to even the Super 8s, resulting in a current standing of #7 in the world, with Bangladesh, Sri Lanka and Afghanistan coming in hot on their heels. And over in tests, of course, last year Pakistan were ranked a couple of places above, and now currently they have slipped to #8, further down the order. Now, there are, of course, several reasons for the reversal of fortunes and this slump that Pakistan cricket is experiencing. The biggest has been the lack of transparency and faith in the system and the captain. Trust is key, and to remove someone like Babar Azam and rejig a whole team with talented, yes, but inexperienced players helming the affairs would only succeed in rocking an already shaky boat. The distrust and discontent in the locker room that we've obviously heard from all the reports, that needed to be addressed. Talks of camps and rift between Shaheen Shah Afridi and Babar Azam can only damage the synergy of a side. The other factor, key to Pakistan's growth and sustenance in this sport, cricketers continuing to be invested in and playing domestic cricket in the country. That took a hit. The Haris Rauf case in particular was enough to shine light on how Pakistan is losing the battle to the growing T20 leagues around the world. That's only affecting their own system and the players who've been part of it, who'd rather not be signed up in the contracts and play T20 cricket instead. And hence, it's resulted in the inability to groom more players. Former cricketers have, of course, blamed the PCB for not being able to rein this in and focus on developing the cricket at home. They say the board is spending money on the wrong kind of investments, on roping in foreign coaches instead of spending it on strengthening the domestic setup in the country.
The PCB's favoritism, false promises, and injustices towards domestic players are unacceptable. In a time when Pakistan is struggling with inflation, poverty, and massive electricity bills, the PCB is wasting $5 million on mentors for doing nothing. It's even more disrespectful that the PCB claims they don't have instruments for surgery, which is a huge disrespect for domestic players.
Now, there are many reasons, the ones I spoke of just now, and many beyond these that are plaguing Pakistan cricket at the moment. And maybe that is why the Champions Trophy next year is so critical for the country to not only show that international cricket has finally arrived, has finally come home, but also a win, a big win in front of their home fans. Probably is just the thing that this cricketing country desperately needs. It took just a few hours for Argentina to go from being heroes to villains in the world of football when Enzo Fernandez's racist song targeting the French national team after the Copa America win went viral. That opened a Pandora's box which has just not shut since. The controversy rages on, and it has come to the point where Argentina football team is now on the verge of facing sanctions from FIFA. Football's governing body, FIFA, has warned Argentina to ensure that none of their fans indulge in any offensive or discriminatory chants during their World Cup qualifier against Chile that is set to take place tomorrow. So the situation is pretty grave. Sure, Argentina would face the possibility of a smaller turnout against Colombia. There will be restrictions imposed on fans if there are any untoward incidents that crop up during the Chile game. But this could again snowball into something more serious. That is what is worrying Argentina now, who are forced on the back foot in this saga, who have now become all the more cautious and defensive. That is quite the change in tone for Argentina, because if you remember, the political top brass came out in strong support of their football team. Now, I understand if you punished the side, yet stood by them, but that was not the case here. The vice president, in fact, defended their racist chants.
No colonialist country is going to intimidate us for a song on the pitch or for telling the truths they don't want to admit. Argentina is a sovereign and free country. We never had colonies or second-class citizens. We have never imposed our way of life on anyone.
A statement that did not refute what Enzo said, what Enzo's demeaning song meant. The Vice President, Villarreal's words were so blatant here that only escalated the matter further. So much so that Argentina's Prime Minister Javier Milei had to meet French President Emmanuel Macron. That happened during the Olympics in an attempt to try and smooth things over. That's how hot it got in the weeks that followed. Argentina players were booed during their Olympic opener against Morocco. They were criticized during the match against France. Pretty much every game they played involved some drama. But that's the price you pay if your political top brass makes such statements. And ever since then, the country has been walking on thin ice. The players are under scrutiny and the football world looks at them as villains. And that is why when the football team returns to action, the Argentina Association doesn't want anything to go wrong. Because after Enzo's video went out, FIFA started an investigation which is still underway. So every step Argentina takes here on has to be calculated carefully. Not just to avoid any further backlash, but to ensure the situation doesn't go out of control any more than it already has. And the most paramount task, of course, at hand would be to curb the fans. Many Argentine fans kept singing those chants in various domestic matches, even after the Enzo incident. And not just the domestic matches, they did it even during Olympics. Tomorrow, Argentina will be playing at home, but without the crowd favourite and legendary player Lionel Messi, the one calm face who can silence the most raucous crowds. He has the ability to tone things down, all the more reasons that Argentina has gone from saying this racist chance is reality to being humbled and circumspect. It isn't because they regret the chance. It has not come to that just yet. It's because they don't want to lose the essence that binds this country, their football. But here's what I think. It's been close to 2 months since this matter exploded and it is yet to die down. If Argentina, instead at that time, being bossy, had addressed the issue, called players out and set an example, if Messi had made a statement back then, maybe things would have been a little different today. Argentina would have stopped being the pariah, the outsider that the world is viewing them as now in the football world. The world champions are now suddenly humbled and are at the mercy of the powers that be, and that is the only way they can proceed here on, with caution. Time for last serve. Serena Williams returned to the US Open for the first time since her retirement in 2022. The legend that she is. She came just as a spectator, but the cameras followed the 23-time Grand Slam winner everywhere, giving pep talks, inspiring the next generation, and just, well, being her. Take a look. Taking us down memory lane, that, and probably that's why there were 6 American players so far in all of the Grand Slam. But that wraps it up at Firstpost here for us. Thanks for joining in. I'll see you again tomorrow. Till then, do take care.
Hello and welcome to Fast and Factual. My name is Utsav Parekh and here are the top stories of the day. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has made fresh remarks about a possible ceasefire in Gaza. He said that Israel will agree to a permanent ceasefire